Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is currently 11:56 and 68 degrees on this absolutely beautiful Tuesday evening going into Wednesday. And Alex is getting ready to go to bed. And we were just kind of hanging out in bed talking and stuff. Yeah, and I have tons and tons of stuff to do tomorrow, so I need to get up early tomorrow. Well, early for me. I just don't want to, like, sometimes I get up and I just kind of, like, hang around the house and laze around the house. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I need to get up and, like, get going right away. So I'm going to vlog for, you know, an hour-ish. And then, And then I'm going to, and then I'm going to listen to my audiobook for, like, an hour. Which I'm really, really into right now, The Homecoming. Talk about that in a second. And then I'm gonna go to bed. So I should be in bed by, I don't know, like 2:30. And if I sleep no later than 10:30, then I'll be up. That'll be 8 hours of sleep, and that should be good. And I have a really long day tomorrow. I have a bunch of stuff I have to get done throughout the day. A bunch of errands to run. And then tomorrow night, when you guys are watching this, Alex's friend is throwing him a very low-key and casual surprise birthday party. She really wanted to do something for him, so she reached out to me and she was like, what do you think? And she was like, I want to do it before you guys go to Florida, because when we come back, his birthday will have been over. And so, because we're going to be gone during Alex's birthday. And so she was like, I really want to do something for him, and I thought that I could have, you know, like, just some of his close friends over, and, like, people that, like, she's friends with, like, they go out and do stuff. And she's like, I thought I could have it catered, and I was like, okay, so she's doing all that. Alex has literally no idea. I was, like, asking him, I was like, so, what do you got going on tomorrow? And he was telling me about his work day and stuff, and then I was like, what are you doing tomorrow night? And he was like, absolutely nothing. He was like, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna start packing, and just relax. He was like, that's all I'm gonna do tomorrow. So, little does he know that he is having a surprise party tomorrow night. And, it's funny because it's, like, Alex is really hard to keep a surprise from. And, I even kind of, like, messed it up at first because I didn't know that it was going to be a surprise. And I said to Alex, like, a week and a half ago, I said, oh, I think one of your friends might be wanting to do something or plan something for your birthday. And I didn't say which friend. And he was like, oh, well, we're going to be out of town. And I was like, well, maybe on a different night or something. And he was like, okay. And he was like, was it supposed to be a surprise? Because you just ruined it. I was like, I don't know. She didn't say if it was supposed to be a surprise. So anyway, I called his mom yesterday and invited her. It's literally like, it's just like this one group of friends that Alex, like, hangs out with, like, these girls, and they're all very, very sweet. And so it's like 5 or 6 of them, and then, also the 2 friends that we went on the couples trip with, and then Alex's mom and grandma and myself. So his friend is going to text tomorrow, like, group text us, Alex and I, and say, hey, because they always get Thai food and just kind of hang around and have a glass of wine and stuff. She's going to text us and be like, hey, before you guys go out of town, I wanted to have you over. I thought maybe we could just, like, I got some Thai food, and I wanted to give you each something for your birthday. So that's going to be, like, the premise to get him out there. So that's the deal. So that'll be fun. And that's tomorrow night, but we have to be there at 7, which means we have to leave our house at 6:30, which means I have to start getting ready at 6. So I have to, like, get up and have everything. I mean, I can't be like, you know, I can't get this stuff done or that stuff done. Like, I have to have it all done by, like, 6 o'clock. I mean, done and done. Like, done. Like, I have to have all my videos filmed and published and up. And, because, I mean, I can't, like, tonight, oh my gosh, tonight I was, like, running behind. It was, I went and had to run a bunch of errands today. And, which was good. I got a lot of stuff done that I wanted to get done on my list. But when I got home, I was like making videos, and I was like, well, I think I have enough time to upload these videos, and I just didn't. And I literally took a shower, lotioned my body, I didn't even do my hair. I just let it like air dry, and I put some stuff in it. Got dressed. Are you guys ready? In 7 minutes tonight. And because Tanya wanted to get to the meeting a little bit early because she wanted to talk to somebody. And so I went downstairs, and my drama video still had 10 minutes to upload, and my review video had 14 minutes to upload, and I was just like, forget it. I was like, I usually would wait, but I was like, forget it. And I just left and was like, I'll just get it up when I come home. So I got them up really, really late tonight, but that's okay. Got those videos up tonight when I got home, got some more stuff done at home, and got stuff ready. Oh, the other thing is, Alex had gotten me this Polaroid camera for Christmas, and I want to take it over there tomorrow night because my friend that was in town this weekend, she had a Polaroid camera, and she's like taking pictures with her and like everybody to like give them something to remember. And I thought it was like a really cute idea. So I want to make sure that this Polaroid camera is like ready to go tomorrow, and it has to be charged and all this kind of stuff. So I'm charging it right now, and then I'm going to put some film in it tomorrow. I have to figure out how to put the film in it and stuff. It's like kind of a difficult Polaroid camera. Like when I was growing up as a kid, do you guys remember Polaroid cameras were so easy to use? You just put the film in it and it was ready to go. This is not that. This is a little bit more difficult than that. But it looks like a Polaroid camera on the outside. It's kind of cool. It kind of looks like an old school Polaroid camera. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna figure that out tomorrow and take that over there. His mom's really excited, and she's bringing his grandma too. So that'll be nice. And then, yeah. So I got up today. After I vlogged last night, I listened to my audiobook for a while. I just like couldn't stop listening to it. It's just a really intriguing story. And it's not like super deep. It's just an interesting story. So anyway, I vlogged for a while, and then I finally went home. I was like, okay, Peter, you have to go to bed. And of course, I had the hardest, I was like, why am I the last 2 nights having such a hard time falling asleep? I couldn't fall asleep. And I just like tossed and turned. But anyway, so I got up today, went and ran a bunch of errands, and then I did a review video and got coffee at Starbucks, and then I came home and made the videos and started getting ready to go to the meeting. And it was such a beautiful evening tonight. We had such a great time, and like before the meeting, I was standing outside talking to some guys, and then after the meeting, we all stood outside, like all of us, and we're like talking and hanging out. It was just such a beautiful evening. And where my meeting is, it's at this church that's like surrounded by like fields and stuff, and it's like a really pretty area out there. So anyway, it was a really nice evening. Talked in the meeting tonight about, as addicts and alcoholics, how we affect our families and the people around us when we're using, which was a good topic to talk about. I talked a lot about my dad, and well, I didn't say the book because it's considered outside literature, but when my dad read Beautiful Boy and then I asked him about it, he said that's exactly how it was. I think sometimes we really forget, you know, like, I think as an addict and an alcoholic, just even instilling fear in our family of them being worried about, like, you know, are we going to make it home, or where are we, or, you know, are we hurting ourselves or whatnot, you know, I think, like, we forget sometimes that even that, like, is a huge, huge thing, like, how we really greatly affect our family members, you know. And I know when I got sober, I really didn't believe that I had really affected that many people in my life. I was like, you know, my mom was in her own active addiction, and my dad and my stepmom seemed okay. Little did I know that, like, constantly they were worried about me and where I was and what I was doing and if I was alive and if I was coming home, you know? I mean, they were always worried about me, and I didn't know that, you know? And, so I think if I can give my dad one gift in life, it's to make him never worry about me again. And he actually said that to me. God, it's been a long time, but I said something to him about, are you proud of me? This was like probably 15 years ago. And he was like, what do you mean, am I proud of you? He was like, I talk about you all the time to people. He was like, I talk about how incredibly proud I am of, like, you staying sober and, like, working a program, and not just staying sober, but, like, you know, staying in and working a 12-step program and all that stuff. And he said, you're just a different person today completely. You know, you were so selfish and self-centered, and you just aren't that. He said you would lie about anything because you just never wanted, like, if I asked you, you know, like, well, what about this or what about that? He was like, you know, you always just wanted to do your thing, and so whatever made it easier for you, you'd lie about it, you know, just make it easier back then. He's like, you're not that person today, you know. He's like, you're so honest, and he was like, and you've really just changed so much. It was just such a neat moment that my dad and I had. I can remember that it was a phone call, and I can remember, you know, and he was like, and the greatest thing is, like, you know, your stepmother and I haven't had to worry about you ever since then. He was like, I don't worry about you today, you know, like, you grew up and you take care of yourself now, and you know, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And I think it is a huge gift that we give our families, you know, when we're sober, that they don't have to be worried whether we're, you know, lying in a ditch somewhere or whatever. And I gave my dad a lot of sleepless nights. I gave my mom a lot of sleepless nights, and my stepmom. I gave my mom a lot of sleepless nights too, and I didn't realize that I did. You know, just because my mom was in her active addiction didn't mean that she wasn't worried about me, didn't mean that she wasn't fearing for my life, probably even more so than my dad at times, you know? I think the thing is with my mom, she didn't know the extent of how bad it was because I kept a lot hidden from her. My dad really had a clue of, like, how bad it was. Like, he really got it. The gate to that park is closed tonight. That's interesting. I always see, like, a car back there. It's lights, like, driving around. It's interesting. So this book, The Homecoming, let me just tell you about this book. Well, and what's interesting about it is, okay, so it's almost 14 hours long. It's like 13 hours and 59 minutes. And so basically 14 hours. And I'm like 5 hours into it, okay? So it's about these kids who their mom leaves them in the parking lot in the car in this supermarket. And they really talk a lot about, so the kids are 13, 10, 9, and 6. And the oldest sister, Dicey, is the one that, like, takes care of them. So they talk a lot about the mom having mental health issues. They don't really say it that way, but, like, imagine talking about it from a 13-year-old's point of view. And it's really interesting how they describe mental health from a 13-year-old's point of view. It's actually really well done. And how a kid would understand that. And talking about, like, mom gets lost in her thoughts, or, you know, whatever. And, like, the 13-year-old, to some degree, even though she's mad at her mom, like, she's very protective of her too. And it really reminded me a lot of, like, or it reminds me a lot of, like, being protective of my mom's drinking when, you know, anybody would say anything or whatever. I was always like, that's my mom, you don't know, you know, kind of thing. And, or anybody, I mean, I could talk bad about my mom, but if anybody else talked bad about my mom, I was like, hey, you're gonna talk about my mom that way, you know? And, with mental health stuff as well, you know? But mostly with the drinking. But anyway, in this book, the mom just goes away. She just leaves. And she leaves the kids. And she, like, wrote on all of these bags the address for her aunt that lived in, like, Bridgeport, Connecticut. And so they have to, like, they walk there. And it's so bizarre, like, this one point, they're like sleeping in the park in New Haven, right outside of this college. And I mean, there's so many colleges there, I don't know what college it would be, but anyway. So this graduate student comes out, or I guess he's almost a graduate student. I think he's just a regular college student, comes out. And their hairstyles and stuff, like, this book was published in 81, but like really it feels like you're reading a book from the 70s. I mean, they play these weird instruments. Everybody in the book plays weird instruments. And there's a lot of songs they sing, and they're like songs that like people wouldn't, I don't know, maybe like, people just sing these songs, and they have all these, I don't know, it's just weird. There's a lot of like old-timey kind of stuff to it. But anyway, this kid comes, this college kid, and he's like, here, I'm gonna take you guys. He gets them out of the rain, and she doesn't trust it at first. And then he like takes them to go get hamburgers and French fries and Cokes. And then they sleep in his room with his roommate for the night. And then the other roommate drives them the rest of the way to Bridgeport. If you're gonna read this book, I'm telling you, this is literally like 10 minutes of the book. I'm not ruining anything for you, so just so you know. I mean, just one part of the book. So they go, and I knew it was gonna be something like the person they were looking for wasn't there anymore, and it is. But now they're living at this other place, and I'm like looking at like my audiobook thing, because you know it comes up on the computer, and I'm like, okay, I got 9 hours more of this book. Like, what's gonna happen in 9 hours of this book? Like, what could possibly happen in 9 hours of this book, right? That all of this other stuff is gonna happen. I think, like, I haven't seen the movie, but I know Kathy Bates is in the movie, and they go live out in the country somewhere. I'm thinking maybe she's like their grandmother or something. They go to live with their grandmother, because they have a grandmother that lives in Maryland. Like, they talk about that. I just wish I didn't know that there was a movie out there. I could download that movie, actually, and watch that on my flight down to Florida. That might be kind of fun to watch. I don't know. It's just really, and so now they're living with this woman that's like real religious, and she like gets them all, she like doesn't even want the brothers and the sisters to sleep in the same room, because it's like girls and boys mixed and stuff. And she says stuff like, Dicey's like, thank you for taking care of us or letting us into your house. And she's like, well, I have to. It's the Christian thing to do. And I can't tell if it's just like the tone of the author, or if they're like kind of being sarcastic about this woman's like religiosity. She's Catholic. They talk a lot about, like, the priest comes and talks to the oldest sister, and he's like, and this is like where I said it's like old-timey. Like, he's like, your people aren't Catholic, right? Like, that's just such like an old-timey kind of thing, you know, that somebody would say. Now, are your people like Lutherans, you know, or are, you know, your people don't go to church or something like that? I just feel like that's such an old-timey kind of thing to say. But anyway, it's good. It's really good. But I was driving around, and like when I'm listening to it, like whenever I listen to audiobooks, I kind of get like off in my head and stuff sometimes, and I was thinking to myself, I don't think I really want to read this on the beach when I'm in Florida. Like, I need to finish this book, you know what I mean? I was thinking, I think I want to read another one of the Dexter books from the Dexter series, because that takes place in Miami, so I got to finish this book so I can read a Dexter book. You know, when I was sitting in that driveway during lockdown, and I was doing my vlog in here and watching Schitt's Creek and other shows on my iPad and stuff, and then I would listen to audiobooks. I literally would just sit there for like 3 hours wide awake and play Words with Friends and listen to audiobooks. And I got through so many books. But, you know, now that it's nice outside and stuff, when I'm driving around during the day, like, I want to listen to music. I've been listening to a lot of music when I've been, like, driving during the day. So back then, I had nothing to do but listen to audiobooks, which is why I probably like powerhouse through these audiobooks. I don't know how in January or February, I think both months of this year, I read like 15 and 17 books. I don't know how, 17 and 15 books. I don't know which month which, but I don't know how I did it. Like, I must have just listened to nonstop books for that month. Maybe it was because it was cold, or I don't know. I mean, I love audiobooks. I'm not losing the love of audiobooks. It's just, and I was listening to some long books back then too. I know that Grady Hendrix book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I know that book was long, and I feel like Where the Crawdads Sing was a long book as well. I mean, a really long book is like The Stand, which I downloaded, and The Stand is like 47 hours. Which I really wanted to listen to, like, a long book like that this year. Like, I've heard The Stand is fantastic. But even if I listen to The Stand at, I mean, I could do it. If I listen to The Stand at 2 times speed, that would be 24 hours, which I listened to it 2 hours a day, would be 12 days. I mean, it's still like, I think the thing I'm going to do is, if I get close to 100 books towards the end of the year, then I'm going to listen to some long books like that, because I really want to listen to like at least one really long book this year. I also need to listen, oh, you know what, I listened to those Harry Potter books last year too. I also need to listen to the last 3 Harry Potter books. I said I wasn't going to, but I think I'm going to finish them, just because I want to be able to say I've read them. They just don't last long with me, like in my head. Like, I enjoy them while I'm listening to them. They're like enjoyable stories. And I totally understand, like, so many friends of mine have read them to their kids, you know, as they were growing up, and they'd, like, every night, like, read, like, 10 pages, or that's how their kids learned to read. They'd, like, you know, like, read them to eat, like, the kids would, like, read them to them at night before they were going to bed and stuff. And so many of my friends' kids, like, grew up with them. I have this friend of mine that's sober. I don't know how old her kids are now, like, 13 and 10? No, they've got to be older than that. Probably, like, 13 and 15. But when she and I were really close friends, I mean, we're still friends, but like we were like hanging out all the time. She was newly sober, and she was reading she had read all of the Harry Potter books to her kids, and they at the time were probably like 5 and 8, maybe 5 and 7, 5 and 8, I don't know. And she had read all of the books to them. Like, they would go to, like, when they went to bed at night, they'd have, like, a half an hour of where they just read the Harry Potter books. And she had them all out, like on her table in the living room, and her coffee table. And I said to her one night, well, not like the coffee table, like where she put the lamp, like just a table. And I said something to her. That was when she was reading them. And I said, are you reading the Harry Potter books? And she was like, oh, I'm reading them to the kids. She was like, but they're so good. She was like, that when I'm done reading them to them, I come out here and I read like another hour, because I just, like, they're so good. I want to find out what happened. Like, I don't relate to that. Like, there has yet to be a Harry Potter book that I sit there and I listen to that I'm just like, I have to keep on driving. I mean, maybe I said it at the time, I don't know, but I didn't look in retrospect. I don't think that, where I was like, I have to find out what happens. I mean, I have read a lot of books where I was like, I don't want to go to sleep because I want to find those Paula Hawkins books. Oh my God, like Girl on a Train, and those books at that time, like Girl in the Window, and that Kate Hamer book, The Girl in the Red Coat, that was so good. All these girl books, but Girl in the Window, Girl on the Train, Girl in the Red Coat. Beneath Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. I mean, those books, those thrillers were so fantastic. Like, I would drive around and I did not want to stop listening to those books. But Harry Potter, I never felt that way. Were they enjoyable? Sure. I think part of the enjoyability about Harry Potter is, and I, like, the investment of being able to like develop relationships with these characters, that the majority of these characters are likable or extremely unlikable, like Snape for some reason, you know, but like, you know, it becomes this whole world of its own, and where you can really be kind of a part of that world. I do want to go to Harry Potter World, though. Like, Alex and I are probably in the next year or two going to plan a trip to Disney World, which is going to be real fun for me because I can't go on a lot of rides because of my epilepsy. But I want to go to Harry Potter World. But before I go to Harry Potter World, I want to have read all the books and seen all the movies. Speaking of which, I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, instead of like buying a bunch of these movies, why don't I just download, like, because I've got the Disney Plus or whatever, why don't I just download Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, because I haven't seen those yet, and my goal was to watch all these Star Wars movies. Hell, I don't even really remember what ended up happening at the beginning of the first one. I remember, like, she gave them all medals or something because of their bravery or whatever. It was so funny watching that movie because I feel like I started, I keep on wanting to call Empire Strikes Back, I keep on wanting to call it One Life to Live, like the soap opera. That's where my mind is at. But anyway, where am I at on time? The part where they're, and I thought it was in the second one, I didn't, because I must have watched part of the second. I do remember watching part of the second and the third one when I was a kid, but probably at somebody's house or something. I just don't remember it very well. But anyway, the part where they're in like that trash thing that keeps on getting like tighter and tighter and tighter, I had that when I was a kid. I had that toy, and I had the, oh God, I wish I still had this in my basement because I bet it was worth a fortune today. I had the, what's it called? The Millennial Falcon, is that what it's called? I had the Millennial Falcon that had the door that popped out and you could walk the people up it. In the basement, I have like old school like stormtroopers, and I have, what's his name? Luke Skywalker in his original outfit, the brown outfit. I have that in the basement, but his arm's all chewed up. But it still like goes out where it has like the, what do you call it? The, well, I can't remember what that is called. You Star Wars lovers out there are like dying right now, I know. Lightsaber, which I used to call lightsaber when I was growing up. But anyway, it has this thing on his arm that you like go like that, like you push it and then it comes out of his hand. I have those in the basement. They're not worth anything. I thought they would be. But when I was a kid, I had that contraption, and you would put like these sponges and these like plastic worms and stuff in there, and then you'd put the people, right? And then you'd like screw it closed until like they just get tighter and tighter and tighter. And I remember I would play with it, and I would just like smush all the people until they couldn't get out, and that was it. I was bored with it. I used to also have, these are the toys I wish I still had that would probably be worth a lot. I wish I also had the Donnie and Marie stage with the dolls that came in pink and purple outfits. The Donnie and Marie stage. Have you guys seen her on TV for the ads for Jenny Craig? Does she not look absolutely incredible for her age? Oh my God. Marie Osmond looks fantastic. But anyway, I was like kind of weirdly obsessed with Donnie and Marie when I was a little kid, which is so funny because I don't really remember watching their show or anything. Kind of, but not really. But I did love those variety shows when I was a kid. My grandma, I think, watched them because I would watch like with my grandma Lawrence Welk and Hee Haw and stuff. Tanya and I always hang out of the windows of the kennel because she's got this like big bay window in her office of her kennel, and it's got these windows. So there's like a bay window in the middle, and then on either side there's these windows. And we'll like open them and close them. And I'll lean out the window and I'll go, "Hey, Tiny Jean." And she'll say, "Hey, Peter." And I'll go, and then you have to go out, then come back in, right? And then I'll say, "Why did a chicken cross the road?" And she'll say, "I don't know, why?" And I'll say, "To get to the other side." And then we'll go, "Hee-haw." We always do that in these windows. And that's so corny, but I loved that show, Hee Haw, back in the day. And I loved, what was that one where they were all sitting, like all the people, Madam was in it too, the puppet Madam, and they would sit, Hollywood Squares, oh my God, I loved that show, Hollywood Squares. But my grandma would make me watch Lawrence Welk, and I can remember, I talk about old-timey, I thought that show was so old-timey, but I always thought that people were so pretty that would just like float across and whatever. So yeah, we would watch all the variety shows, Carol Burnett, whatever, what else? I don't really remember watching Carol Burnett a ton when I was growing up. I think my mom really liked her. You know what's so funny is when I go back and I watch some of these shows, like Mama's Family with Vicki Lawrence is hands down one of the funniest shows I've ever seen in my entire life. It is so I mean, Vicki Lawrence is so hilarious. It stopped. I was talking about Vicki Lawrence being so hilarious. And I think because, this is what I was saying, I think because she was always under, like, the shadow of Carol Burnett, like, she didn't get as much spotlight or acclaim as Carol Burnett did, which I think they're very close. But Vicki Lawrence in her own right was just absolutely hilarious. Have you guys watched this? I mean, everybody, the whole cast of Mama's Family was so hilarious. She was so good in that role. My ex really liked her, really liked that show, and I started watching that show with him. I don't know, a lot of these sitcoms back in the day, I miss them. Designing Women was so good. I love that show. And you know, I look back on Designing Women at the time that it was, and they really were discussing like important topics at that time, you know, because Delta Burke, they would talk a lot about like weight issues and stuff, and like that reunion episode is one of my favorites of Life. And then when their friend, the other decorator, was dying of AIDS, they talked about that. They talked a lot about racism on that show. They talked a lot about women's rights. They talked a lot about divorce, which at that time people didn't really talk about in TV shows a whole lot, you know, the Annie Potts character. And, I mean, Julia Sugarbaker as a character was definitely like an activist in her own right, you know, and it's just like, I look back on that show and I think like how important it was in a lot of ways. I loved that show. I loved Delta Burke in that movie too, where she was obsessed with slot machines, and she said, "I can't stop!" when she won the Progressive. Yeah, I loved her. She's still here, I think. I'm almost positive. She's married to the guy that was on the show, kind of. And I think they're still married, and produced the show as well. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, though. My mom and I, when I was a little kid, we would watch The Waltons, which I don't really remember a whole lot of watching The Waltons. That must have been when I was really young. But she would always say at night, she'd say, "Good night, John Boy." "Good night, Jim Bob." I used to do that on my YouNow live streams that I did forever. Oh my God, I did those live streams like every other night forever. "Good night, Jim Bob." And we watched Laverne and Shirley, which I loved. I watched an episode of Laverne and Shirley not too long ago. I don't know if I watched it on YouTube or if I watched it on TV. Where was it? And it was the one where, I think I was watching it just on my computer on YouTube, where they're playing the cast of Alice in Wonderland, and Shirley is Alice, and Laverne is the caterpillar, and I think like Shirley's appendix ruptures or something on the show. Something happens, and she has to go to the hospital, and Laverne is hitting on the doctor, of course, and they've all got their costumes on. Oh my God, it's so funny. I totally forgot how funny that show was. And then my mom and I, we would brush our teeth and we would sing the theme song. That's how my mom would get me to sing the theme song. And we would sit there and, "We're gonna do it. Da, 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 da." And I always had to be Shirley, and my mom had to be Laverne, because I never thought Laverne was very pretty. I actually, after I watched that show, I like looked up to see what happened to all the cast, and you know what's so weird about that is, like literally like right after that, I think this just happened, that guy that played Squiggy passed away. And then of course we watched Little House on the Prairie. I think I've watched every episode of Little House on the Prairie ever that was on. Did they blow up the town at the end? Why do I have some memory of them blowing up the town at the end? Did that really happen? Was that a real thing on Little House on the Prairie? I should go back and watch all of those. Oh my God. I used to want to sleep at the top of those stairs where Laura and Mary slept. I always thought that looked so cozy. Speaking about cozy mysteries, I thought that looked so cozy. Oh, I bet that's how I got through in January all those books, because I was listening to the Fortune Reading books, the Miss Fortune books by Jana DeLeon. The way they pronounce it in the audiobook is different than how I pronounce it. It's like Jana DeLeon or something. Anyway, I think that's what I was reading, a lot of those cozy mysteries then. Maybe that's why I was just like ripping through books. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, I always thought that it looked so cozy up there. And Ma would like come up and tuck him in. She'd come to the top of the stairs and tuck him in and stuff. So sweet. I think it's weird there haven't been any other Prairie shows, really. Is there another Prairie show? Well, that Jane Seymour Medicine Woman show, I guess, was one of them. I didn't watch that. And then I watched Love Boat every week, Fantasy Island. I was obsessed with Fantasy Island. Like, I wanted to go to Fantasy Island so bad. And you could not convince me that there was not a place that was real like Fantasy Island. Like, I didn't believe that the island on the show was real. But, like, I really believed that there was an island out there where all your fantasies could come true. I always liked the ones where they would like be on Fantasy Island and they would go to like the resort and stuff, and they would want like this dream makeover, and they would come out and look so pretty and whatever. I just always loved that. I can remember the beginning of I actually have like one season of them on DVD when they would come out and they would be like, and he would say, "That's Judy Smith. In her real life, she's a bookkeeper, stenographer in the courtrooms. But she recently went through a breakup." And then that little short guy would say, "But what's her fantasy, or why is she here?" And he'd say, "She thinks that love is not for her, but she will find something very different on Fantasy Island." Guests, join me. Welcome to Fantasy Island. Oh, and Dallas and Dynasty, I watched those shows. Loved them. And then Roseanne. I loved Roseanne growing up. I talked about that. I was talking to a friend of mine tonight about that episode. Like, Roseanne had a lot of important things that she talked about on her show too, you know? And one of my favorite episodes is when she spanks DJ. And she sits down with him with milk and cookies at the end of the show because she's so ashamed that she spanked him because her dad used to hit her as a kid. And DJ like doesn't want to have the conversation, and she's like, "No, we need to have this conversation because my dad used to hit me and I'm not going to hit you anymore." And I loved that episode. Do you know what is interesting is I was watching the other night when I was at the kennel with Tanya. I was watching these aha moments. And if you get on YouTube and you put in Oprah's aha moments, there's actually like a 52-minute, I don't know how long, 59-minute video. I don't know, 50-something. And it has all of the aha moments in a row. And that's actually the disc that I owned originally. I gave it to my mom, the set. But then she let me borrow it because I wanted to see all the aha moments. And then my mom bought it for me, and I now have 2 copies of it. Of Oprah's like 35th anniversary edition or whatever. It's got interviews and all this kind of stuff on it. But one of the things it has is all of her aha moments. So if you want to see all of Oprah's original aha moments, they're on that. You can get it. You can watch it on YouTube. But one of the first ones that she was talking about, it's so interesting to me. She's talking about how a woman came up to her in a store and she said, "You changed my life." And this is where Oprah said she realized that it wasn't just a show. Like, the things they were talking about were changing people's lives, were affecting people, were impacting people. And the woman said to her, you changed my life. And you know, like, and Oprah was like, "Well, what happened?" And she said, there was an episode where Oprah talked about, she had guests on there that like had beat their kids, and they showed a clip of it, and because they should go back and they show clips from like the show where she learned something, like her aha moment. And she said in the show, every time you hit your kid, you take a little bit, you take a piece of them away that they can never get back again. And that you take a little bit of their pride or, you know, their self-esteem away. And the woman looked at her and she said, I used to hit my kids, but I don't hit my kids anymore. And Oprah said, well, what changed for you? And this was so powerful to me when I heard this again. I mean, I'd heard it probably 20 times before watching these things. I don't know what's getting me so teary-eyed thinking about this, but I just think it's so true. She said, it wasn't the first time that you said it. It wasn't the second time that you said it. And it wasn't the third time that you said it. She said, but you kept saying it. And it was that you were consistent in saying it. Don't hit your kids. She said it was because you were consistent. And I thought about that, you know, when I was sitting there watching it, and I thought about what are the consistent messages that I have received in my life from people, you know, that have changed me as a person. And the red truck's not here tonight, by the way. And I was thinking about it, I was like, what are the consistent messages that you have been given in your life? You know, not just from your mom and dad, but like, oh look, there's an orange, it's right in front of the driving school too. There's an orange cone out here. I guess I'm supposed to drive around it, I don't know. It's a test. But I was like, what are the consistent messages that you have been given in your life, you know? What have been the examples that people have led for you, that they have shown that they are consistent in that, you know? It's like my dad is such a good example of suiting up and showing up. Like his entire life has suited up and showed up. I, honest to God, cannot think of one moment in my life where my dad either said he was gonna be there, promised he was gonna do something, or I had something to do when I was growing up and into my adulthood that it didn't happen or that he didn't show up. I can't think of one thing, not one thing. I mean, my dad has been so consistent in showing up and being my dad and always being there for me. Like, I can't think of one moment, really, you know? And, like, that's pretty powerful. That, like, your one job is to show up and you do that as a parent. Like, that's a really big deal, especially when you think about the amount of parents that don't show up for stuff, you know? Just don't even show up for their kids' lives sometimes. I'm not talking about parents that leave their kids on the doorstep, or like the book that I'm reading, The Homecoming. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about parents that sometimes just don't even suit up and show up to even ask their kid, how was your day? You know? You know, I think about like the other big aha moment on the Oprah thing as far as raising kids was when she was having like this sit down with Toni Morrison and these other mothers. And Toni Morrison, the author, who I absolutely adore anyway, like Beloved and The Bluest Eye and stuff like that, she said, what's my favorite Toni Morrison book though? Why can't I think of it? I was going to say Their Eyes Were Watching God, but that's Zora Neale Hurston. I took a class on Toni Morrison when I was in college. It was probably one of the greatest classes I ever took. And the movies do the books no justice, by the way. What's the one where she's walking into town at the beginning and they're talking about all the people that live there and the doctor? Is that Beloved? I think that's Beloved. What's the one with the saxophone in the front of it? Jazz? Is it just called Jazz? I think that's the one I haven't read. Well, there's a couple that I haven't read, but I know I haven't read Jazz. But anyway, Toni Morrison is sitting there and she's talking about like when you're parenting a kid. Now you have to know Toni Morrison's story. Toni Morrison worked all day long in a publishing house. My camera just went to the halfway mark. And came home, you know, made dinner for her kids, did homework with her kids, got them bathed, put them to bed, and then at like 2 o'clock in the morning, she would write these award-winning novels because that's how bad she wanted to be an author, right? mean, she really suited up and showed up. And so she's talking in this thing about raising kids, and she said, you know, when a kid walks in the room, when a child walks in the room, I've talked about this on here so many times because this is such a profound lesson for me, not just in children, but I think in people. When a child walks in the room, they're looking for your critical eye. When a child walks in a room, they look and they say to themselves, do their eyes light up? You know? And she said, for us, the adult, when a child walks in the room, we're thinking to ourselves, you know, do you have a belt on? Or do you have your shoes on? You know, or tie your shoes. But for a child is looking in your eyes and saying, do their eyes light up? Are they excited to see me? Are they happy to see me? And you know, I think it's interesting because like when you have pets, right? Like so many people say, pets are like my children and I love my pets. And I feel that same way. My pets are like my children. I will never have children. So my pets are my children and I treat them as such. But when I walk in the door, their eyes light up. They are so excited to see me. They are so happy to see me, and that warms my heart. And I think that even as adults, when we walk into a city, when Tanya gets in the car, I look at her, does her eyes light up? I mean, I don't think I consciously think that, but I think with my friends and things, I'm like, are they excited to see me? Are they happy to see me? You know, on and on and on. And so I think these aha moments for me are so much more than aha moments. They're life lessons that I have learned through these things, you know? I think like one of the most powerful ones for me was the women that had killed their infant kids and were in prison, and Oprah went into the prison and interviewed them. And they were horrible, horrific stories. Horrific stories. And this one woman had like, and it was all as a result of like, they wouldn't eat their dinner. I mean, we're talking about infants, okay? They have little infants. One woman was in there for the second child she had killed. She killed the first one. She got out, got pregnant again, and then killed her second child. And the one woman put her baby in the freezer because it wouldn't stop crying. Another woman took her baby and threw it against a cement wall because it wouldn't eat its dinner. And the other woman put her baby in a suitcase and put it outside in this like 100-degree heat because it wouldn't stop crying. And afterwards, one of the women came up to Oprah and looked at her and said, "Why don't you hate us?" And Oprah looked at her and said, "Hey, you know, I don't hate you. See, because that's what you do with your pain, but I do something different with mine." And it's like, you know, as an addict and an alcoholic in recovery, it's like, I mean, I think that killing your child is obviously like one of the worst possible things that you could ever do, if not the worst possible thing you could ever do, right? That's what you do with your pain. I do something different with mine. I think that's just a profound statement, you know? True. It's such a truism. The other one that I loved was the woman, I mean, I didn't love the story, but that I learned a lot from, was the woman who, her husband was an ex-police officer, her ex-husband, she was divorced, and she had 4 kids. 2 were in high school, and 2 were like in junior high. I think one was in elementary school, one was in junior high, and then 2 were in high school. And she got up that morning and she went for a walk with her friend, and she came back and she walked into the house, and her husband had shot and killed all 4 of the kids and then killed himself. They played the 911 call, and she was like, I mean, it just was like literal guttural cry. And her telling her story, that wasn't the aha moment. The aha moment was when this woman that had written in, and she was just at her end. And she had decided that, and she had kids that were younger, you know, and she decided that she was going to take her life. And she was putting a scrapbook together for her kids to remember her while she was watching the episode on Oprah where this woman had talked about what had happened to her with her kids being killed. And the husband then took his life too. But, so the woman said, but anyway, that was on the first show. This other woman that was watching it came on there and said, because you shared your story, I sat there and I watched and I thought, how does she even go on with her life? Like, how is she able to even continue with her life? If she can, then I can for my kids. I have to for my kids. So having watched that show, this woman decided she wasn't going to take her life. That is powerful. That is powerful when you share your story, and we all have a story. We all have things we have learned. If we share that and we turn, like Oprah says, our wounds into wisdom, if we share those with other people, and we're not afraid of those things that we've gone through, you know, because sometimes we're so afraid to look at that stuff that we've gone through in life. We're so afraid and so resistant to want to talk about it. But if we talk about it, we might be saving one person out there, you know? You might be saving one person just by sharing your story. You never know that. I had started at one point that Storytellers channel, and I was really excited about it, and it was just not the right time. And then I still have it up over there in case I ever want to start it, but I wanted to have people on there telling their stories, just because I think it's important for people to know that everybody has a story, and each person's story is important. And I don't care what your story is, you know. There's like this woman that works at the Meijer, and I mean, she's probably in her 70s, late 70s, and she is so excited about being the greeter at Meijer. I mean, so excited, right? Like, when I see her, like, she cheers me up. Like, you can't be in a bad mood around this woman, you know what I mean? And I just would love to know her story, you know, like, what gets you to the point where every day you wake up and you are just so excited and so happy, you know, to be here. I think there's lessons that we can learn from everybody out there, you know? We don't just have to learn lessons from what we've gone through. We can learn lessons by what other people have gone through too. And I think one of the hardest things for me was when I got sober. I really thought like a lot of my friends around me that were using on that level, I mean, this is so arrogant, isn't it? But I really thought like a lot of my friends would be like, oh, well, if Peter got sober, like, I need to get sober too. And I just thought it would be this, like, you know, all these people would be like, oh, since Peter got sober, like, I'm just as bad and I need to get sober too. But that didn't happen. In fact, I only have one friend of mine from back in the day, and she didn't get sober for like 5 or 6 years later. She's still sober today, but and she's in a different program than I am. But like, when I heard that she was sober, I was so happy, because I was like, oh my God, we partied the same. We were just, you know, and maybe a lot of people didn't need to get sober, you know, maybe they weren't as bad as I thought they were just because we all partied together, you know. But I look back on that and I thank God. I just really thought other people hearing it, or other people, you know, knowing that I was staying sober might jolt a few people to want to maybe do the same thing. I actually lost quite a few friends. Well, I lost all my friends after I got sober because I just wasn't going around them anymore. But I lost quite a few friends in the next couple years after that, but passed away from drug-related stuff. It's hard, you know. I've lost a lot of friends. I've had a lot of friends that have died from drug stuff, drug and alcohol stuff. Where am I at on time? Those aha moments, those moments that give you goosebumps, that you go, God, I never thought about it that way, you know. It's like the woman whose daughter had been murdered, this is one of my favorite stories. I've told this a lot on here. And she didn't change her room or anything, you know, for like ever. It'd been like 10 years. And her daughter died when she was like 18. And she came on the show, and Dr. Phil was talking to her, and he said, you know, do you think it's I would love to do my Dr. Phil voice right now, but I don't want to make it funny. Do you think? Absolutely, Oprah. But he said, you know, do you think it's possible? He said, would your daughter be happy with you knowing that you hadn't like changed her room? And she said, oh no, she'd be very upset with me. She would want me to continue to live my life. And he said, which I think is important. I think it's important for us when we're grieving and we get stuck in grief. I think it's important to acknowledge our grief, allow ourselves to feel. I don't think we should ever push that away. I don't think we should ever move on. I think we should move through it and feel our feelings. And even if 30 years later you still have that feeling because you missed your mom on Christmas, that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But there is a piece of being stuck and not allowing ourselves to continue to live and have amazing life. And I think if we were honest with ourselves, okay, no matter who we've lost, I think if we were really truly honest with ourselves about what that person would want, I can't imagine most people wouldn't say, I'm not there to enjoy it, so please enjoy your life that you still have, because I can't, you know. And I think that's what most people I would hope would want for us. I would want that for the people in my life if I wasn't here anymore, you know. And I would want people to continue to enjoy their life and live life. Would I want them to be sad a little bit because they miss me? Sure. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But no, I wouldn't want people to be stuck forever, you know, and not be able to move through that pain and whatever, because it is painful. I think grieving is one of the most painful things ever that we experience. But you know, like last night, laying in bed talking to Alex about pee-pee and both of us crying and stuff like that, like, those moments are really special for me. And I hold on to those moments where Alex and I talk about pee-pee and relive the memories and stuff, you know, whatnot and stuff. But I wouldn't want to live in that pain 24 hours a day all the time, thinking about pee-pee all the time. That's too painful. I don't want to do that, you know? So anyway, he said to her on the show, he said, do you think it's possible that instead of, you know, focusing on the one day that she died, that you could instead celebrate the 18 years that she was alive? And you literally, in watching this clip, I mean, she turns her head and she goes, I never thought of it that way. And he goes, do you think that you can see it that way now? And she just like almost breaks down. She's like, oh yes. And she says, my plan was to come on here and share my story, and then I was going to go home and take my life. And he goes, is that still your plan? She goes, I don't have to do that anymore. You know, like, it's just, when we share things, our stories with people, and allow people to see maybe a different perspective, which is why I think like YouTube is such a cool thing. I mean, you can literally, you could search any topic on YouTube, because I do this quite often, which is probably surprising, not. You could put in like grief, right? And you can pull up 10 different videos of how it helped you. When Pee-Pee passed away and we were in Mexico on that trip, I watched so many videos from vets and dogs talking about, or people talking about dog psychics, and I'd watch anything, right? And I'm not saying I agreed with all of them, but there were so many things that really did help me with that. And one of the things I heard that was so helpful to me was that there was this vet, and she talked about grieving, like grieving the loss of a dog, and she said, or any pet, you know, and she said, the thing about it is when you have a sick pet, and I really had never thought of it this way. She said, the thing about it is that animals don't have the concept of death that we do. Like, we are like, okay, it's an ending, it's gonna be over, the camera is dying, the battery is dying. But we don't have that concept, right? Or like, animals don't have that concept. They just want the pain to stop. Like, they just don't want to feel sick anymore, you know? So for them, death is not this final act, this ending. And I was like, oh my God, like I had never looked at it that way before, you know? I mean, I think we say that to each other, like, I don't want this person to suffer or that person to suffer or whatever, you know, or they're not suffering anymore because they've gone, you know? But I think I never thought of it that way. That even like with animals, like the fear that's associated for a lot of us with losing someone or our own death or our own mortality, animals don't really have that, you know? Like they don't really have that, you know? So that was really helpful to me in losing PP, because I just was so lost at that point and so sad, you know? So videos on YouTube really helped me with a lot of that. All right, you guys, I'm gonna end this now. Is it gonna stop here? Oh my God, I've got 30 seconds and the battery's dying. The battery's dying and I got 30 seconds. So anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing Wednesday. If nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Be kind to one another. Like I also always say, practice random acts of kindness, but also like I always say, don't tell anyone. Just put some goodness, kindness, goodness, kindness, love, compassion, tolerance, understanding, faith, hope, courage, wonder, and awe, and magic out there in the world. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. It ended! So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. I love you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love you. Bye. Love ya! Oh, and for those that want to hear it, because it's almost over, one more I love you. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya!